dress clinging to her thin frame. Her hands shook as they rested over the small but undeniable swell of her stomach. She was 12 years old, carrying a child, and she had been cast out like a criminal. Her father's last words burned hotter than the sun overhead. "You are no daughter of mine. The Lord will judge your wickedness." He didn't shout. He didn't tremble. His voice was cold and sure, like a hammer striking a nail. Emma had searched his face for mercy, for the man who once lifted her onto his shoulders and told her Bible stories. But she found nothing, only a stranger made of pride and stone. Behind him, the church bell rang, and the people of Pine Ridge watched her with narrowed eyes. To them, she wasn't a child, she wasn't a victim, she was a warning. They handed her a canvas sack with stale cornbread and a jug of water. Not kindness, just enough to say they tried. Then they closed the gates. Just like that, her childhood ended. Emma walked because there was nothing else she could do. The sharp rocks tore at her feet until they bled. The sun made her dizzy, and every step sent sparks of pain through her weak, hungry body. She tried not to cry. She tried not to think of the boy who ran east when his wealthy family learned what had happened. He had cried when he said goodbye. She had believed him when he promised to come back. But no one came back. By the second day, the cornbread was gone. By the third, her water skin felt light as air. The nights were freezing, the days burning. Her belly ached, not just from hunger, but from the small life moving inside her. On the fourth day, her legs simply stopped holding her weight. She collapsed under a small, twisted tree that offered more shadow than comfort. Her breath grew shallow. Her vision dimmed. She pressed her hand to her belly and whispered a broken apology. "I tried." Quote. Her eyes fluttered closed, ready to surrender. Then, footsteps, slow, heavy, certain. A tall shadow fell over her, blocking the sun. Emma forced her eyes open and saw a man towering above her. His clothes were made of leather and fur, handmade and rough. His hair was long and dark, tied behind his shoulders, and his face looked carved from stone. Sharp cheekbones, hardened jaw, eyes like cold embers studying her with a quiet intensity. His skin was weathered by wind and snow. He looked like the mountains themselves had raised him. A mountain man. Emma's heart thudded with fear. She had heard stories. Men like him lived far from towns, far from laws, far from God. Some said they were dangerous, some said they were wild. But he didn't touch her. He didn't speak. He just watched her, unmoving. Emma's dry lips parted. "Please, help." He didn't react. Not at first. Then, without a word, he uncorked a leather water skin and offered it. Emma grabbed it with shaking hands and drank. The water was cold and clean, tasting like life itself. When she finished, she looked up, but the man was already turning away, walking with long, steady steps. Panic stabbed through her chest. He was leaving. Her voice broke as she pushed herself up onto her elbows. "Wait." He didn't stop. Emma's breath hitched. Something inside her snapped. Not weakness, not fear, but fire. "Wait!" Her voice echoed across the rocks. This time, the man paused. Emma forced herself upright, shaking, exhausted, but standing. "You walk away," she said, her voice thin but steady. "And you leave, not one life, but two." The man slowly turned. His dark eyes moved to her swollen belly, then back to her face. His expression didn't soften, but something in his gaze changed. Not pity, not fear, recognition. He stepped closer, crouched to her level, and finally spoke. His voice deep, rough, barely used. "You are dying." Emma swallowed. "Not yet." A silence stretched between them. Then he spoke again. "I am not your savior. I do not care for the ways of towns or their sins. But the wilderness does not waste life without cause." He stood, tall and unshakable. "If you follow me, you work. You learn. You become strong. If you complain or slow my path, I leave you behind." Emma stared up at him, her heart pounding. It wasn't safety he offered. It was a chance. She nodded. The man turned and walked. And this time, Emma followed. Every step hurt. Every breath burned. But she kept going, eyes fixed on his back, on the promise of something better than death in the dirt. By the time they reached a hidden valley with running water and a small cave built into the mountainside, Emma could barely stand. The man finally spoke his name. Jeremiah. He looked at her, not as a burden, not as sin, but as someone who had survived something impossible. Emma whispered her name back. Emma rose. And standing there, bloody, exhausted, abandoned by her old world, she felt something she never expected. Hope. Life in the hidden valley was nothing like the world Emma Rose had known. There were no church bells, no tidy streets, no neighbors whispering behind closed shutters. There was only the wind, the mountain, and the steady presence of Jeremiah. The days were long and quiet. Jeremiah spoke rarely, and when he did, his voice carried the weight of someone who had learned to trust silence more than words. Emma learned quickly that nothing in this place came without effort. The first morning, Jeremiah handed her a flat stone and pointed to a cluster of thick roots growing near the creek. He didn't explain. He didn't guide her. He just walked away. Emma stared at the stone, then at the roots, and a sinking fear grew inside her. She was tired, hungry, and her body felt stretched thin under the weight of her growing child. But she remembered his warning, "If you slow my path, I leave you where you stand." So she knelt down and began digging. The earth was hard. Her fingers burned. The stone cut into her palm, and dirt packed beneath her nails. Sweat dripped from her brow, and her breath grew heavy, but she kept going. When she finally lifted the pale root free, her hands trembled with the effort. But she had done it. She carried it to Jeremiah. He sliced it open, tasted it, then handed her a piece. It was bitter, almost sharp, but it quenched her thirst. She chewed slowly, feeling something unfamiliar swell inside her. Pride. She wasn't helpless. She wasn't weak. She could survive. That night, she sat across from Jeremiah near the fire. Sparks floated into the dark like tiny stars. The smell of rabbit stew filled the cave, simple but warm. Jeremiah watched the flames, his expression distant. Emma finally asked, in a soft voice, "Why help me?" The question hung in the cold air. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke. "You fought." That was all he said. But she understood. He hadn't saved her because she was pitiful. He saved her because she refused to die. In the days that followed, Jeremiah taught her, not with soft lessons or gentle encouragement, but with survival itself. He showed her how to read tracks in the dirt, how to weave snares, how to split firewood, and how to move silently across uneven ground. He corrected her mistakes with a single raised brow or a quiet shake of his head. Emma never complained, not once. At night, exhaustion sank deep into her bones. Her body was growing heavy with the child, her back aching, her feet swollen and raw. But each day she woke. Each day she worked. Each day she grew stronger. One afternoon, as she tried to grind corn on a smooth rock, her hands slipped and frustration surged through her. Tears stung her eyes. She hadn't cried since the day the gates closed behind her. She clenched her teeth and tried again. Jeremiah watched from a distance. He didn't step in. He didn't offer comfort or scold her. His quiet patience felt like respect, not pity. By evening, the grinding bowl held enough powder for stew. Jeremiah nodded once, small, almost invisible. But Emma saw it, and she felt the warmth of something rare. Approval. As the weeks passed, the valley changed from a place of survival into something she never expected. Home. She learned where wild berries grew in the shade. She learned which plants healed wounds and which ones burned the skin like fire. She learned to listen, to the trees, to the ground, to the stillness. And slowly, she learned to listen to Jeremiah. One night, as the fire glowed low and the world outside turned black and quiet, Emma marveled aloud. "I never thought I could live like this." Jeremiah didn't look up, but there was a hint of something in his voice. Not cold, not distant. Truth. People don't know what they're capable of until the world strips everything else away. Emma thought about Pine Ridge, about her father's eyes filled with shame, about the child growing inside her. "Maybe," she whispered, "losing everything is how we find what matters." Jeremiah finally looked at her. For the first time, there was something soft in his gaze. Not love, not yet. But recognition. She wasn't just surviving now, she was becoming. That night, before sleep claimed her, Emma placed her hand over her belly and felt a faint movement. Small, fluttering, full of life. A single tear slipped down her cheek, not from sadness, but from something deeper. Hope. But the world beyond the valley had not forgotten her, and the peace she had found was about to be tested in a way neither she nor Jeremiah could ever expect. The peace did not break with thunder. It began with a sound so faint Emma almost ignored it, a distant snap of a twig, too heavy to be an animal. Jeremiah froze where he stood, his body going still in a way that made the air itself stop moving. His eyes narrowed, listening. Emma's breath caught. Something, or someone, was coming. Jeremiah turned toward her, his voice low and steady. "Stay close." Emma nodded, her heart pounding. She scooped up her woven cradle basket and held it protectively against her stomach. Her baby was due any day now, and every instinct in her body screamed danger. Jeremiah moved toward the narrow entrance of their hidden valley with silent, practiced steps. Emma followed, slower and cautious. The wind carried voices, low at first, then clearer as they grew closer. Men, armed, looking. Emma's blood turned cold. A rough voice echoed between the rocks. "She has to be close. That mountain savage won't hide her forever." Another man laughed, a cruel sound. "The preacher's right behind us. He wants the girl found, wants the child gone." Emma's heart stopped. Her father. Jeremiah slowly reached for his knife. His shoulders tightened, not with fear, but with a quiet, protective fury. "They tracked us," Emma whispered, her voice shaking. Jeremiah didn't look at her. His reply was calm. "They won't take you." Before she could speak again, the first of the men stepped into view. His rifle hung loosely in his hands, confidence clear in his posture. His eyes widened the moment he saw Emma, and then narrowed when his gaze shifted to Jeremiah. "Well now," the man sneered. "Looks like we found ourselves a little family." Jeremiah stepped forward, placing himself between Emma and the armed stranger. "Leave," he warned. The man laughed. "Not without the girl." More boots approached behind him, 5, maybe 6 men. Then another figure appeared. Emma's stomach dropped. Her father. He looked tired, his clothes dusty from travel, but his eyes burned with the same hard righteousness that had exiled her. When his gaze met hers, something dark twisted across his face. "Emma Rose!" he called, lifting his chin. "Come here!" Emma clutched the cradle basket tighter. "No." The single word echoed between the stone walls. Her father stiffened, his pride flaring. "You belong with your people, with the Lord, not with this heathen." Jeremiah spoke before Emma could. "She belongs where she chooses." Her father's eyes filled with hatred. "And you choose him?" he demanded. "A wild animal? A murderer? A man cursed by God?" Emma lifted her chin. Her voice trembled, but it did not break. "I choose the man who saved my life." Her father's face twisted. "He corrupted you, took advantage of your weakness, that child you carry." Emma took one step forward, her voice steady and fierce. "This child is mine, and he will grow in love, not fear." The men shifted uneasily. Some lowered their rifles slightly. Doubt flickered in their eyes. Her father reached for his weapon. "Enough," he hissed. "Step aside. She comes with—" A sudden sharp pain ripped through Emma's body, cutting off his words. She gasped. Jeremiah spun toward her. Emma clutched her stomach as another wave of pain tore through her. "It's happening," she whispered. "The baby now." The men froze. Jeremiah moved instantly, strong arms lifting her before her knees gave out. Her father barked, "This is a trick!" But the men behind him didn't move. Their faces had gone pale. One spoke softly, almost respectfully. "Reverend, she's in labor." Jeremiah carried her back toward the cave, his grip steady, his breath calm though his eyes burned with urgency. Inside, the world narrowed to fire and breath and the instinct to survive. Emma clung to Jeremiah's hand, her cries echoing off stone. His voice stayed low and steady beside her. "Breathe. Stay with me." Every second stretched like eternity until one final wave of pain crested through her and a new sound filled the cave, a cry, loud, fierce, alive. A child. Emma sobbed with relief as Jeremiah placed the tiny newborn in her trembling arms. The baby's skin was warm, his fist curled around her finger with surprising strength. A boy. Her heart overflowed. Outside, silence gripped the valley. The men who came to judge her now listened to the one sound no hatred could argue with: life. Jeremiah stepped to the cave entrance, the firelight casting him in shadow. Emma's father stood alone now, the other men having stepped back. Their anger had turned into shame. Jeremiah's voice carried across the valley, steady as the mountains. "She is no prisoner. She is no curse. She is a mother and she is home." Emma's father did not respond. He lowered his weapon. He turned away. The others followed. No one fired a shot. When they finally disappeared into the wild, leaving only dust and fading footprints behind them, Jeremiah returned to Emma's side. She looked at him with tears streaming down her cheeks. "We're safe?" He nodded slowly. "You are." Emma leaned her head against his chest, their newborn resting between them. For the first time since being cast out, she wasn't afraid. She wasn't alone. She wasn't ashamed. She had found strength. She had found love. She had found a new beginning in the place meant to be her grave. Jeremiah whispered the final word of this chapter of her life. Soft, reverent, full of meaning. Family. And with the sound of their son's gentle breaths filling the cave, Emma Rose finally believed it. They were home.